Hey everyone, welcome back. I'm Eric. When I first saw Brené Brown's Dare to Lead, I'll be honest, I kind of thought, great, another leadership book. Don't we have enough of those? But man, was I wrong. This book isn't just another playbook with a few new rules. It's a total rewiring of what leadership even means. It makes the case that our old model, the flawless, all-knowing boss, isn't just a little outdated. It's actually the very thing holding our teams back.
All right, let's just jump right in with a little thought experiment. I want you to imagine this. You're a manager, okay? A huge project, one you've been pouring everything into, has just completely failed. The numbers are bad. You're about to walk into a room with your entire team. So, how do you start that meeting?
Well, you could go with option A. You walk in, maybe you throw the report on the table, and you start asking, whose fault is this? You find someone to blame. That's the armored approach. It's that knee-jerk reaction to protect yourself. Or there's option B. You walk in, take a breath, and you say, look, this is really disappointing. I know we all worked hard on this. Let's figure out what happened together. Now, option A is super common, right? But option B is what actually fixes the problem and, in the long run, builds a team that isn't afraid to fail.
So, that first option, the one that's all about fear and blame, that's what Brené Brown gives a name to. She calls it armored leadership. It's this whole collection of behaviors we use to shield ourselves, and it turns out it's the source of so many of the problems we see at work every day.
And here's the key thing you've got to understand about armored leadership. It's purely a defense mechanism. It feels safer in the moment to point fingers or to demand absolute perfection. But over time, these behaviors are just toxic. They build a culture where everyone is terrified to take a risk. And in the world we live in today, if your team isn't taking risks, you're not innovating, period.
And I'm willing to bet some of these armors are going to sound pretty familiar. You've got perfectionism, that voice that says, if I do everything perfectly, no one can ever criticize me. There's the leader who always has to be the knower, the one with all the answers. And oh yeah, my personal favorite, cynicism and sarcasm. That's just a cheap way to look smart without actually contributing anything. We've all seen that person, right? Totally silent in the meeting, but then becomes the world's biggest critic over by the coffee machine. That is classic workplace armor.
And this right here, this is the absolute heart of the entire book. The whole game has changed. For decades, we've been on this hunt for perfect leaders. But what Brown's research shows is that the most effective leaders today aren't the ones with the highest IQs or the most flawless track records. They're the ones who are the most courageous.
Okay, so if the problem is all this armor we're wearing, then the solution has to be courage. But here's the twist. To even understand courage, we have to totally change the way we think about vulnerability.
Just let that sink in for a second. That's such a powerful definition. Vulnerability is not weakness. It's the exact opposite. It's having the guts to step into the arena even when you have no idea if you're going to win or lose. It's admitting you screwed up. It's asking that question you think might sound dumb. It's giving someone feedback that's tough to hear. That uncertainty, that's the feeling of courage.
In fact, Brown goes even further. She says that all the things we say we want in our teams, real trust, genuine connection, game-changing creativity, all of it, every single one, is born from moments of vulnerability. You just can't have one without the other. It's impossible.
And here's the best part. Courage isn't some magical trait you're born with. It's actually a set of 4 skills that anyone can learn. Brown breaks them down for us. Rumbling with vulnerability, which is all about how to have hard conversations. Living into our values, making sure your actions line up with what you say you believe. Learning to rise, which is how you get back up after you fail. And finally, braving trust. Now, we could do a whole session on each of these, but today we're going to zoom in on that last one because I think it's the most practical tool you can start using right away.
We all talk about trust, but what is it really? It can feel like this massive abstract idea, but what Brown does so brilliantly is break it down into 7 specific behaviors you can actually see and measure. This is where it goes from being a concept to being a checklist.
And this is it, the braving acronym. This is a total game changer. B is for boundaries, being clear about what's okay and what's not. R is for reliability. Super simple, you just do what you say you're going to do. A is for accountability. You own your mistakes. V is for fault. You don't repeat things you hear in confidence. You keep secrets. I is for integrity, choosing what's right over what's easy. N is for non-judgment, creating a space where people can ask for help. And G is for generosity, assuming people have good intentions. Think about it. Anytime trust has been broken in your life, I guarantee you can trace it back to a failure in one of these 7 things.
All right, so this is all great stuff, but how do we actually start doing it?
Like, what's the first step you can take tomorrow morning to start building this kind of trust with your team?
So the first thing to get is that trust isn't built in these huge, dramatic one-off events. It's not the company retreat or some trust fall exercise that builds real trust. No, it's built in hundreds of tiny, everyday moments. And to explain this, Brené Brown uses this really simple but powerful metaphor, the marble jar.
So here's how it works. Imagine an empty jar. Every time someone on your team does something that shows one of those braving elements, like when they own a mistake, that's accountability, it's like you add one marble to the jar. When they ask for help, non-judgment, that's another marble. Over time, all these little moments fill the jar up, and you end up with this massive reserve of trust. But here's the catch. One big betrayal, like sharing a secret from the vault, can dump the whole jar out in 1 second. So your job as a leader, it's to be a marble spotter. Notice those small moments and acknowledge them. So as we start to wrap this up, the book really leaves you with one big question. Every day, in hundreds of small moments, you have a choice. Sticking with that armored leadership style? That's comfortable. It's what we know. But daring leadership, that's what's needed. It's a choice. And this quote just nails it. You can choose courage or you can choose comfort, but you cannot have both. It's so true, isn't it? Leading from a place of real courage means you have to get uncomfortable. But what this book makes so incredibly clear is that it's only in that uncomfortable space that the really good stuff like real connection, innovation, and trust can ever be built.
So the choice is ours to make every day, comfort or courage. I really hope this breakdown has given you a few tools to maybe choose courage a little more often. If you found this useful, do us a huge favor. Hit that like button, subscribe, and maybe share this with your colleagues. It might spark a pretty important conversation. And hey, if there's another book that's really made you think, drop it in the comments below and let us know. Thanks so much for watching. I'm Eric, and I'll see you in the next one.